When somebody writes a book that you know and you respect, ultimately, and they send it to you, and you start reading it, there's some kind of a how do I put it? No, I can't say. There's something there that you understand as a writer because you have sent your first book. I'm not sure how many times I've gotten a first book from a writer, a second book, but it's exciting, and you want feedback. To my friend whose novel I'm reading right now, it's a very good book. You made a beautiful thing, and I'm still reading it. When you texted me about where I am in the book, I'm not that far. About halfway to where you guessed. I'm taking my time with it. I'm reading it as a reader and not a writer. I've had, in the last half year or so, I've had three people, thrice, send me books they've written. And one thing I'm going to say is I'm lucky because the few friends I stay friends with who are writers, who I really typically avoid writers in my personal life. A lot of reasons, but the few I do talk to are really good people, and they're funny. They're not like precious, They're not like feed me feedback. They're humble. They're just beautiful creatures. So I think that for me, reading this book there are two ways to read a book that someone that you know sends you. This person's a lot like me. If you're watching this, you're a lot like me when you get work done. When I found out that my friend wrote a book, I said, I want a copy, because of course I want to read that novel. Of course I do. I'm drawn back to to a best-selling author. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to. But he and I were talking one day, and he's like, did you read my book? I'm like, yeah, I read it. I didn't like it. It was like a spy novel or something. I liked the technique. I liked the discipline. I saw what he did, but it's just not my thing. But I didn't like his smugness, and it came out in the work. When I first read the book, I didn't know him really, but when I read it, I was like, this guy's fucking smug. And he's good, but I don't like it too much when a writer's personality breathes life into a book too much. You must do that. You have to. That's what makes it yours. But this was an overwhelming gloss of surface, and there was nothing beneath that. When you cracked it, it was very well done technically. But I don't know. Anyway, he said to me, well, thank you for reading it. You're welcome. And he goes, he asked me some tricky questions that only someone who read the whole book would be able to answer, and I understand that too. And but what he said to me, he goes, yeah, I get about 8 to 10 man use a month. People want me to read their work. I don't think that's true. I'm not going to call bullshit on the conversation because it's his show. I was just a mirror in the conversation. I was just listening. Reason why he called me is he ran this company, and he and I were talking, and he had read some reviews on my first book, and he wanted to talk to me and pick my brain. Little did he know that it was independent. It wasn't a publisher. That's a whole different story. It almost was, but I pulled the plug. Regrettably, but also kind of proud of myself that I did that at that age with that little money in my pocket. But anyway, he said something to me that really sat wrong with me. It put a bad taste in my mouth. He said to me, he goes, he was like, I'm like, did you read them? And he goes, dude, we're writers. We don't really read anybody else. And I was like, what? We're authors. I'm an author. I don't read anybody else. And I thought to myself, how the fuck are you a writer if you don't read anybody? I mean, I get it to a certain point. You might want to stop reading. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. I'm sure. Maybe, I don't know how, I can't count. A lot. And Tom Jones, the writer, not the singer, the writer once said to me, we were having a conversation after a reading. Hang on, I'm getting chalky. He said to me in the U District, one time in Seattle, he said, if I read a good book, I'm going to write a good book. And at the time, I took that in a completely wrong, opposite direction than he meant it. Now that I'm older, I understand exactly what he meant. So, thing is that when I wrote, like The Velocity of Ink, and I wrote my later works, I didn't really have a lot of reading in my 40s. I did. I was a bibliophile, reading. I read everything voraciously. I couldn't read enough. But back to my friend who wrote a book. To me, it's just such end of the best-selling author. You can say that. Anybody can say that, by the way. I found that out. It's all wordplay. But I really thought, I have a filmmaker buddy. Let me go on this way for a minute. I had a filmmaker buddy, and I have a filmmaker buddy. He doesn't work with anybody. He only works on his own films. And I like that about him. I think it's cool. If you have the means and you can afford to finance just your own work. Absolutely. But there's something amateur about him that's locked in to that ego. And not that you have to work on somebody else's project to be better. But you know what I mean? Like, there are David Lynch's there's still, I mean, I don't know, are there still, I don't know. David Lynch was David Lynch for a reason. Even someone commercial like Spielberg is Spielberg for a reason. They're monoliths. They stand alone. And I think that a lot of these people, or George Lucas, well, back in the day, Scorsese back in the day, and there's so many. Paul Gomez, I didn't like the way he ended up, but who else? So many. Paul Thomas Anderson. Who else? Wes Anderson, I guess. Aesthetically, I like his work. Aesthetically, I like the intros to his work. I once seen, though, where Bill Murray lit that joint to Moonage Daydream. Oh, that was a beautifully shot scene. In the Steve Zissou, whatever that was, that aquatic, whatever. Anyway, hold on. Back to my friend who wrote this beautiful book. It's a beautifully written book. And of course, the author of the book is hung up on a few mistakes, some micro mistakes that I keep hearing about. It's really good to read these texts and hear about this book from this author, because I went through the same thing. My first book came out at 1,500 print run with mistakes, a repeated paragraph, typos. The lady sent the wrong file to the offset press, and it came out where the first draft was published. 1,500 copies were published, first draft, mistakes. So many of them that I was so horrified that I just let it go. I embraced it. So I do understand the urgency to whenever I see that old book cover on Amazon, right? I get so mad at myself. So mad that I didn't take control of that project. I put it in the palsied hands of people who were supposed to be professionals. But, when you're on a budget, you get a budget result, typically. But back to that book, I'm really having fun going slow and savoring this novel, because when you know somebody who writes a book, it's a pretty rare thing. It really is. When somebody sends you a book they wrote, this is a book in hand package. Like, I opened the book, I could smell the pages, I could see the pages, and to me it's such a beautiful moment when that happens. And on top of that, the writing is good, which makes it really comfortable for me, because if I didn't like the work, it would be really awkward to talk to this person. So, you know who you are, and your book is fucking magnificent so far. I'll say that when I get done with it, we'll have a long convo about it, but I'll put it to you this way. I like the way you build the blocks in this book. It's beautifully done, and you should be proud of yourself. And you should also listen to no one when they give you feedback, unless you're talking to a pro editor, or even sometimes them. I got lucky with my editor. He's fucking crazy, and I don't really even go through him anymore. He's taught me over the years to be my own editor, really, and through his good work. And I get it right about 60% of the time. But you wrote a beautiful book, so thank you for the send. I didn't expect to get it so fast. I wish you could have signed it for me, but I understand it's, you can't do that. I have to go to your house first from the printing place. But next one, I want an autograph. I want it inscribed. Maybe I'll send it to you when I read it, and you can send me back the tattered first draft you sent me, or the editor's copy, and I'll have it on my shelf. Mine. So anyway, this is just a quick video or maybe a not quick video, but thank you for listening, and I will talk to you in the brand new video. And as always, take good care.